welcome to another episode of AD and RD on DC. My name is Al.
I'm Roberto.
Alright, today is October the 10th. It's a Wednesday. And we've already done our intro episode. We've done our Batman-centric episode. So today is a very special episode. We are going to be covering the Man of Steel, Superman.
The last son of Krypton. The man of tomorrow.
Yeah. So, first things first, like we do in every episode, we're going to go through a little bit of DC news. Anything that we may have heard in the last couple of weeks. It's been a little while. I moved from Seattle over to LA, so now I'm in the hub of things. And so that's why we took a week off. So now we're going to get into a little bit of DC Comics news, and then we'll jump into our Superman discussion. Hopefully it will be, well, it'll probably be about the same time limit as we had for our Batman episode, just because these two characters are so quintessential for the DC Comics universe. They are the world's finest. So, Roberto, how about you get into a little bit of DC Comics news? I knew that you had a little bit to talk about the new Man of Steel movie. You have a couple other things you want to talk about in DC news that's coming up.
Yeah. Actually, I'm thinking maybe I'll save some of the Man of Steel news for when we talk about the Man of Steel movie, because I definitely want to get into depth with that. But I have a juicy rumor or possible spoiler. But then I also read again that supposedly was confirmed that it's not true. I don't know. The point is, it'll be an awesome discussion, I think.
All right.
And other than that, for DC, today is a big day because tonight actually is the premiere of the new CW series Arrow, which is based on the DC Comics character Green Arrow. We did talk about it a little bit in the first episode, I believe. We got into it a little bit, but yeah, I'm excited about that. And Al and I were talking, getting ready for this episode, and we have decided that because Arrow is going to be the most current DC incarnation live action wise going right now, that we feel like it deserves a review every week. So we're gonna do our homework and watch every episode. So we'll watch an episode, and then we'll watch an episode of the Arrow, and then our following episode the next week, when we do our follow-up episode of our podcast, we'll go ahead and talk about the last Green Arrow episode, of this last Arrow episode that we watched. So what we'll do is the format is going to be, we'll start with some DC news for about 5-10 minutes, and then we'll jump into the Arrow episode and talk about that. Now, I do have to warn you, because we'd be talking about the previous week's episode, that it's going to be full of spoilers. So if you have not seen it yet, you probably don't want to listen to our podcast until you watch that, or just fast forward through the first 30-40 minutes of our podcast, and then we won't talk about it anymore. We'll get into the new DC characters. So like I said, the first 10-15 minutes will be we'll do some DC news, and then after that we'll get into the Green Arrow episode, talk about that. Hopefully by then we'll have some comments or questions from other people that want us to talk about. And then we'll get into the new character that we're going to cover that day, that we're going to dedicate to. So, and with mentioning that, so the Green Arrow's tonight. Should we reveal the next hero that we're going to talk about next week? Or You want to wait till the end for that?
I think we're going to reveal the next superhero at the end of the episode anyway, so we'll just wait until the end of the episode for that.
All right. Yeah. Keep them guessing.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah. So I'm excited about the Arrow episode tonight. I actually will not be able to watch it tonight because, believe it or not, ladies and gentlemen, I do not have cable. So I'm going to have to wait till tomorrow, or the next day to down. My wife and I are going out of town this weekend for anniversary, so we will be gone Friday, Saturday, Sunday, come back Monday. So chances of me watching it, I might be able to watch it tomorrow around this time in the day. It's 4:45 Florida, North Carolina, East Coast time. But if my wife wants to watch it as well, then I might have to wait a little bit longer because if she wants to watch it, then we'll probably won't watch it till like next Tuesday or something like that. But I will watch it before the next episode. That's for darn sure. And as a side note, that has nothing to do with DC. Supernatural is also on Wednesdays. That's another show that both Al and I highly recommend. It's an awesome show.
Excellent.
It used to be back to back with Smallville, and now it's going to be back to back with Arrow. So that's pretty cool.
So long as Arrow stays on the air.
Yes. So that's one piece of DC news. Another topic in DC news is actually I really don't have anything right now. The biggest nugget of information I really want to talk about is the Man of Steel news that I found out about. Do you have anything, Al? Do you want to share?
I do have a couple things.
Awesome.
I know a couple of comics that have come out recently from DC. They just released Batman number 13, which is part of a series called The Death of the Family.
Okay, keep going. I gotta tell you something about that.
All right. It looks like an interesting comic. I think I'm gonna pick one up myself. I'm gonna read through it. Joker comes back and does some terrible things. It seems like someone's gonna die from the title.
Ooh.
So that one's interesting. Another comic that's come out is a series called Before Watchmen. If you're a fan of the Watchmen series or the Watchmen graphic novel, they've come up with a new little series of stuff that happened before. So you check those out. Those are good reads. What was it that you were going to talk about?
Oh, okay. So yeah, I teased out a little bit before the show. I told him I finally visited the comic book store that's on my way home from my work. It's called Plan 9 Comics. Maybe you know why he would call that Plan 9. I didn't get to talk to the guy in there because he was helping some other people. But so I just went there and I browsed, of course, the DC section. And I am really interested. I really want to get into the new 52, the new series, which is the new series by DC that they're starting to print out and release. And it's like they kind of reinvented the characters, the way they look. Jim Lee, I believe, I don't know if he's drawing all of them, but he did draw the new cover of one of the Justice League editions with Superman and Wonder Woman kissing on the cover. And I actually got to see a really cool. I think I talked about that in one of the other podcasts. But so I was looking through there, and I looked through the latest Superman one. I looked through the latest Batman one, and they both look just amazing. The artwork and everything just looks really cool. So if you guys can go out there and check out the new 52 series, is amazing. And I looked through the Flash. And I think it's the most recent Justice League one has Captain Marvel on the cover, which is pretty cool. And I did see as I'm scanning through the DC section, I did see the Before Watchmen edition. I thought that was really cool. And I'm still trying to decide. I know some of you are probably going to be like, if you were a true fan, you'd buy them. But money's not what it used to be. It's not worth as much as it used to be. And I haven't decided if I want to, start buying them or just going there, picking a day of the week and going there and just reading them and then kind of leaving them there. I don't know. I guess if there was one I really liked, then I might buy it. I really do want to read and possibly buy The Killing Joke, which it was by, this is one by Alan Moore, right?
Yeah, I just ordered that one online, so I'm going to be getting that soon.
Yeah, I'm dying to read that. So that's something I might buy, and possibly a Superman one. And I scanned through well, you know what? I'll talk about that later, because it's about Superman. But yeah, so I wanted to tell Al and all of you out there that I checked out the comic book store. It was really cool. They had some, some old editions that you could buy on the wall that are worth a lot of money. But obviously, I'm not going to buy any of those because I'm not rich. But yeah, I mean, I'm just really excited about the new 52. They just look so badass. It's like I've gone to the DC website. If any of you haven't gone on there, you should go on there. The DC, just all you have to do is Google DC Comics, and it'll take you right to it. And it's just there's a picture of the main six on there that we're going to be talking about. And they just look so awesome. And and some people like the old vintage or the custom Batman costume with the dark navy blue cape and cowl, and then kind of like the gray suit. But the new series, the new 52, it's like they made him look like Batman from the Nolan series, pretty much. Like, have you seen it? Like,
yeah,
it looks like
it looks ridiculous.
I noticed in the comic book store also they had. Well, like, I don't know if it's the new 52, if it's part of that, but they also have a series. It's called the Detective Batman, Batman the Detective, or something like that. Mm-hmm. I don't know if you've seen that, but that's like a whole nother series. I was like, oh, that's pretty cool. I know Al liked that one. Yes, there's some great comics coming out from DC right now, and so you guys can just check that out. And if we, Al or I get the chance to read any, of course, we'll bring it here and tell you about it, and not try to reveal too many things about it, because we want you to go out and read it too for yourself, and let it be a surprise to you. All right, have you got anything else you want to talk about, heard about?
The only other thing that I have to talk about is that the New York Comic Con starts tomorrow and ends on the 14th.
Oh, okay, yeah, I heard about that. I saw it online. Mm-hmm. That there was going to be the New York Comic. I'm just finding this out that I didn't even know they had Comic Cons in other places besides San Diego. I know that's the big one. I mean, I know they have comic book conventions, but I didn't know they had like Comic Cons, whatever, in other places. So I wonder how big the New York one is. It has to be.
It's probably pretty big, but the San Diego one is like the mecca of comic book conventions. It's where everyone goes, like Hollywood celebrities and everybody from comics. They all go to the San Diego one. So, but the New York one is apparently pretty big. So if you all get a chance to go to it, hope you have fun. I don't have the money to travel all the way to New York just to go to Comic-Con. I might have the money to go down to San Diego, but not to the New York one. So that's all.
Okay, awesome. All right, really quick, I want to read this. I just found it on MTV.com, and it's maybe if it's too long, then we'll have to save it for later, or maybe we'll read it before we actually review the first. Yeah. I'll save it for the end. But it says Arrow season premiere, 5 reasons to tune in. Green Arrow returns to the small screen in all new television series debuting October 10th on CW. So yeah, I might read some of these later, but I just wanted to kind of tease the audience about that. But that should be interesting. All right. So I guess so that's a part of our DC update. Also, I just want to but I want to kind of advertise or promote to watch. If you haven't seen the show Young Justice, it's an awesome show. I've been watching it. I'm still in the first season, but it's really cool. I was telling Al that, there's a couple characters that are silly and can be kind of campy. But other than that, the show is pretty legitimate, pretty serious, pretty straightforward, and the tone is more serious. Kind of following the Batman animated series and even Superman animated series as being like, the plot is always serious. Most of the characters are serious, and then you have, your comic reliefs. But I want to promote that show. It's awesome. You should watch it. I know Al hasn't been able to watching it yet, but he's been watching the Justice League Unlimited series again, and that's pretty cool. So yeah, just wanted to shoot that out there.
All right. So without further ado, let's get into Superman. All right, so Roberto, how about you tell us about where your obsession with the Man of Steel began?
All right. Well, I did touch on this a little bit in the first episode, but I told Al the first incarnation of Superman that I really want to talk about, and I know a lot of things came before it, but this is where it hit me. And it's the Christopher Reeve Supermans. And a lot of people like to talk about just the first two, and then sometimes the third one, and they completely discount the fourth one, okay? But I want to talk about all of them.
All right.
Because as a kid, you don't think like that. To you, as a kid, it's just all awesome because it's your superhero or whatever. So for me, the earliest thing of Superman I can remember was Christopher Reeve in the first one, and I just was amazed by that. And I think I loved that he could fly. I just loved all his powers. I loved how strong he was, and I loved how good he was. And I could always relate to Superman. It's so funny to me that a lot of people, especially with the new Superman movies that have come out and the new one that's coming out, the big debate is, well, can Superman really, does it fit in today's culture? Can he really be as big of a character as Batman or, some of the Marvel comics, his idealism and all that, and a lot of people say he's not relatable because he's so powerful and he can do everything and he's perfect and he never does anything wrong. But the thing is, that's not really true. Like I think Superman, the character Superman or Kal-El or Clark Kent can be very complicated, very relatable, if it's just done right. And we'll get into I'll talk about some of the different incarnations that I feel have gotten that right and have gotten the relatability right. But the way I always related to Superman was, one, he's an only child. Yes, I'm not adopted, but I'm an only child. He has two very strong parents with strong morals. That's how my parents were. I'm not a farmer, but he always has a very good relationship, strong relationship with his parents. That's how I've always been. So I've related to it in that way. And I think because I just like him because, he's, as a kid, it was like, oh, I want to like whoever's the strongest or the best, whatever. But I just was always drawn to him. And then obviously when I found out more about comics and heard that he was the first one ever created, I was like, oh, that's cool. I even heard I remember when Superman Returns came out, they released a DVD with it that was all about the Superman history, and they interviewed all these people. And Stan Lee, the main man himself that has come up with all these Marvel characters, who's responsible for a lot of the Marvel characters, who's a megastar in the comic book world and even in Hollywood now, he said that he got a lot of his ideas for characters from
Superman, of course.
And I just love how in all the cartoons, the comics, it's like I love how everybody, there's all these things happening and these monsters and creatures and all this devastation and all the heroes are fighting, and then they all are like, well, let's go get Superman. It's like everybody, he's like the big brother to everybody. And I love that idea. And And so, like, that's what really drew me to him, was just I always related to him because, he had two strong parents, and then as I got older, um, I'm not going to get into faith or religion here that much because we're just probably keep this strictly about comics. But I am a believer. I'm a Christian, and I read somewhere that, for sure the creators of Superman, Joe Shuster and Jerry Siegel, right?
Yeah.
Did I say that right? Yeah, they were Jewish, and it's known that they based a lot of Superman on the character of Moses. And I thought that, I didn't learn that until I was older, and I thought that was awesome. And obviously, I'm someone who studies those scriptures and things, and I thought, well, that's even cooler. And then, as in different incarnations of Superman, it's almost like he's also like not exaggerated because you can't exaggerate. There's nothing greater than God, but has a lot of similarities and parallels to Christ. And I just feel like it's like they took Christ and made him into a superhero in the comics, not Superman. And I'm just like, well, because Christ is my hero, and so it's like I look at Superman and even Batman too. Any hero that sacrifices himself for everybody. I don't care who you are, you're taking that from Christ. Like that's an old story that people are copying from The Matrix. I mean, there's so many like Christ-like characters in movies and books and television. The more evil character in the Matrix, like the one that's going to bring in Star Wars, the one that's going to bring balance to the Force. All these things are pointing back to Christ. So so that's another reason why I love him too.
The only character that I can tell from history that has the same kind of storyline but came before Jesus is Hercules. He also has the same kind of storyline, that he was almost sent from his father down to Earth, and he had that superhuman strength, and he was there to save the people of Earth. Yeah. So it's almost along the same line.
Yeah, exactly. So so that's another reason why I was drawn to him as well. But I didn't connect those dots obviously until I was in high school and after college. But so the Christopher Reeve episode, movies, still in my mind right now, when I think of Superman, I think of him. He's, as much as I love Tom Welling, he's probably my second favorite person to ever play that role. And he's the most recent as far, if you don't, besides Superman Returns.
For those of you who don't know, Tom Welling was the actor who portrayed Clark Kent in Smallville.
Yeah. The
long-running CW TV series that went on for 10 seasons, over 200 episodes. Good series. Just for those of you who didn't know who he was,
yes, thank you.
My partner here just tends to ramble. I just thought I'd interject for a second.
Yes, Tom Welling from Smallville, yeah. So, but to me, Christopher Reeve, I mean, when I think of Superman, I think of him. I mean, and a couple weeks ago, it was on TV. I was at my wife's work, and it came on. I was watching it, and I was like, wow, yeah, this man just, and I'll turn it over to you, too. Like, it was just amazing how natural he was at flying. Like, when you listen to other people talk about him, especially Richard Donner, he said that it was amazing. I mean, he said that it thinks partly is because he was a pilot. He actually had his pilot license, so he knew how planes moved in the air and stuff like that. But he was just so natural at just making it look like you could fly. He could fly. That's why that catchphrase was "You will believe a man can fly," because he just did it so naturally. And even though he was on cables and all that, it didn't seem like that. He just did it so gracefully, and it was just like. He's Superman, and
he's actually flying.
Yeah, exactly. Those movies made me really think that Superman's out there, kind of thing. But yeah, I mean, the Superman one. I mean, what about you, Al? When was the first time you got introduced to those movies?
Well, I think the first time I watched Superman the movie was actually after I started watching Smallville.
Oh, wow.
So, I mean, my first introduction into Superman was the Superman animated series, way back when I was a kid. But, yeah, after you reintroduced me into Superman, starting with Smallville, I decided to go in and try looking up some other Superman stuff. Because I always kind of liked Superman, but I was never really into Superman. Batman was my guy, of course. So watching a little bit of Superman, I was like, okay. Watching Smallville, all right, I'll get back into this. I'll look at him again. And so I watched the movies, and I enjoyed them. I really liked Chris Reeve's portrayal. I tend to agree with a lot of the critics of the third and fourth movies.
Well, yes. I mean, and even me, and see, that's so weird to me because you saw them as an adult pretty much.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's hard also to go back and look at those effects and stuff, and all that, and the way. But yeah, the third and fourth movie, I mean, the first two blow them out of the water by far.
Totally.
But I saw them all, I think, when I first saw them, I saw 1, then 2, then 3, then 4, all together. So it was it was almost like one big movie to me. And because they kept bringing back Christopher Reeve, it even helped that continuity a little bit. But clearly the first movie was monumental. It changed the way Hollywood made movies. It changed the way Hollywood looked at superhero movies. For sure, and there wouldn't be any superhero movies, I think, if it wasn't for that one first. And even Christopher Nolan said that he looked to that movie as well as for inspiration for his movies. And it's just like Richard Donner just did a really great job. And I advise all of you that have not seen Superman 2, the Richard Donner cut, need to see that because they actually stopped him in the middle. They filmed 1 and 2 at the same time. And then they because of legal reasons, and I'm not going to get into all that, but basically, they made them stop filming in the middle of filming the second one, and he basically just kind of quit. Was just like, I had enough of this. This is ridiculous because the two guys that owned the franchise and were the ones in charge, they just ran him out pretty much. They wanted to change all these things, and he wasn't agreeing with it.
Yeah. So they ended up directing the second half of that movie, and that's why there are so many problems at the end of the original theatrical cut. So Richard Donner came in a few years ago, and he decided to recut the movie his way. So that's and then they released it as Superman 2, the Richard Donner cut.
Yes, which is way better, I think. It's really awesome. I mean, you get to see. I believe I saw it. I think I saw it in 2000. I think they released it when Superman Returns came out. So that was 6 years ago. So, but I believe there's an extra scene where you get to see Superman fight Zod and the other villains. It ends differently with Lois. There's just some other things that he changed. Some extra scenes here and there. Just a lot better, I think. So I advise any of you out there that hasn't seen it to somehow get that and watch it because it's, especially if you've only seen the other one. In Superman 3, Al, and a lot of people make fun of Superman 4 more than 3, but I actually think 4 was better than 3. I might be the only one.
You might be the only one.
If you look at 3, to me, 3 was more of a comedy movie to me.
It was pretty much a comedy. I mean, you had Richard Pryor in it,
exactly.
One of the biggest comedies of the time, and it was a pretty funny movie. I enjoyed it mostly because it was a funny movie, but they didn't go too overboard with Superman's powers. In the fourth one, he had powers that Superman never had.
Yes, that's true.
Things just happened that shouldn't have happened.
Yeah, there's a scene, spoiler, where he's fighting the sun created super villain that Lex Luthor creates that has his voice, but Superman's DNA and whatever. And that guy like goes around and destroys things around the world, destroys the wall of China, and somehow Superman can telepathically move them back into place. And I'm like, what? When did he have that power? and then he moved, and then the bad guy moves the moon out of orbit, and then Superman moves it back into. Or no, Superman moves it out of orbit because the guy's powered by the sun, which is how Superman's powered by. But anyways, and pushes it in the way, and I'm just like, okay, you're strong, Superman, but I don't think you can move a moon.
Well, there is actually a comic where he was literally juggling planets because he had that kind of power. And, of course, that continuity was retconned, but it was still showing how ridiculous they could go with Superman's powers.
Yeah.
And they showed a little bit of that in Superman 4.
You're right. But I don't know. I just as entertainment goes, I liked Superman 4 better. But Superman 3, I did like. I mean, I think as a kid, I didn't like it as much because Superman turned bad for a little bit.
Yeah.
And that really tripped me out because I'd never seen him act like that before. So when he turns to that, because he got infected by that other kryptonite, which should have been red, not just a different kind of green. But anyways, it just was, like, seeing it as an adult, it's pretty cool. I mean, it's actually a little bit, it's, like, interesting. It's like what they did in Smallville, which we'll get to later. But, and so I think that's why, in my mind, I'm still remembering it as a child and thinking, well, in Superman 4, he's good the whole time. So, but yeah, I see what you mean. Yeah, I mean, definitely they took a little liberty with his powers in Superman 4. But even in Superman 1, I remember seeing it as a kid and being like, "Oh, that is amazing! He just turned back the world and saved Lois." But that was a little ridiculous.
That was a little ridiculous. Well, of course, no more ridiculous than in Superman 2, where he just throws the S that came out of nowhere. That one was just too much. But I recently watched Superman 2. The first time I watched Superman 2 was the Richard Donner cut, and I enjoyed it. So the other day, I watched the Superman 2. It was on Netflix. It was the original cut, and I watched it with my family, and when I saw that, it just brought me back to a Family Guy episode where they poked fun at that.
Oh, I've never seen that one.
You haven't seen that? It's hilarious. They have Superman throw the S, and then it's like, wow, what was that? Yeah, that's right. I stopped you for a second there. I'm just like, what the hell was that?
I don't know.
So I had to see that.
I mean, there's definitely some flaws in those movies, but there'll always be, especially the first one, because it's the origin story. And one of my favorite parts, there's two parts, and it's that I think are two pieces of gold cinema for all times, for all genres, that are both in the first movie, not in any of the other three. And that's the scene where he's going. The first scene I think is just the first scene I'm going to talk about. That's one of the ones I think stands out in movie history. And obviously I'm biased. I'm just going to say these last two things, and then we can move off of the Donner films and the Superman films from the Christopher Reeve films. But there's two scenes that I think are just cinema gold to me. And the first one is when he's sent from Krypton to Earth, and he's in the ship, and you just hear Marlon Brando's voice teaching him all about the universe as a baby. Like, it's just going on and on, like the voiceover, and you're watching him grow in the ship. I just think it's awesome. It's just
all right.
Really,
All right. For those of you again who don't know, and if you don't know, that means you haven't seen the movie. Watch the movie.
Yeah.
Marlon Brando played Superman's father, Jor-El, in the film, and interesting fun fact about it was that he decided that he didn't want to know any of the lines beforehand. So he cold read all of them.
Like when they recorded it.
When they were filming it, he just cold read it. He didn't put any thought into it. He didn't want to read it beforehand. He just wanted to say it almost like he was reading everything. And that's the kind of performance that he gave out with that. So I thought that was pretty awesome.
Yeah. Especially with that, because you do see him in the movie walking around as Jor-El alive. But then the voiceover, when he's teaching him things from the ship or from the fortress, it's just awesome. So that's the first scene, or actually it's many scenes, but that, I guess I should say that part of the movie. And then the other one is when he goes back to the fortress, when he goes to the fortress for the first time as a teenager or as an 18-year-old, and Jor-El's training him again. And they zoom in on his face, because they show a hologram face of Marlon Brando, Jor-El. And it zooms in, and then they're just showing constellations and stars, and it's just awesome because you're hearing a little bit of this, that's going on in the background, and it's just so epic. And then it ends with him as Superman after he's been, and supposedly there's 12 years that goes on. With him getting trained until he becomes Superman. It's just really cool. And I think anybody that's a fan of superheroes or whatever, you haven't seen those movies, yes, it's hard to go back and watch a movie that was made in the 70s, but there's definitely parts of that stand the test of time, I think.
Still worth it.
Yes.
Okay, so from here, let's move on. Let's go to a slightly more modern Superman. The next thing that happened right afterwards was the Superman animated series that came out in the early 90s.
Yes.
So we'll go to that, and then right afterwards we'll talk about a couple other of the live-action television shows that came on. So, why don't we start with your impressions on the Superman animated series?
All right, I'll try to be short about this so we don't run over time and stuff. But all right, so obviously the Batman animated series we talked about in the last episode, when that came out, I was amazed by that cartoon. Okay, but obviously the whole time I'm watching, I'm like, they got to make a Superman. They got to make a Superman. How cool would it be if they had a Superman? The same format, the same way, everything, but Superman also. And like I said in the last podcast, every time I watch Superman, I want to see Batman. Every time I watch Batman, I want to see Superman. So I'm watching the Batman animated series, and I'm just like, this is so awesome and so cool. I just wait till they do Superman. And what happens? Lo and behold, boom, they come out with Superman, and I'm like, oh my gosh, this is just, I'm in heaven, okay? I'm in heaven. Because, and then they put them back to back, and I was like, I get to watch Batman and then Superman back to back, the same creators and everything. I'm like, oh. And I advise everybody to go watch the animated series. But the first two episodes, the premiere episodes, was almost like a movie. I mean, they went and redid the origin story, but they made Krypton look nothing like the Richard Donner films. They made it look really cool, really modern. They made Krypton look very futuristic. There's flying cars, flying vehicles, all these gadgets and stuff that we don't have. And I like the way they made the Kryptonian costumes look really cool and futuristic and modern. And it was the first, because obviously the cartoons are only half an hour, so it was a two-parter. So it was an hour long, the premiere. And it was called, actually it was four. Wasn't it four? No.
It was a three-parter.
And it's called The Last Son of Krypton.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh my gosh. And I just watched this again recently, so it's very fresh in my mind. And they played it so serious, the first two episodes, and even the third one, it was just like a movie. It was awesome. And I think, and you know, I'm watching it, and I told my wife, she was coming in and out of the room. She has no interest in watching the cartoons at all. She's like, "You're not making me watch any of these cartoons." So I'm like, whatever. But I'm sitting there telling her, and I'm like, you know, the way they're doing this origin, you know, with Brainiac in there and all that, I'm like, this is really, I really almost hope that they go this route a little bit with Man of Steel. Not obviously copy it, but take a little bit from it, because it was like they had a perfect mix of showing Krypton pre-explosion and then afterwards, you know, and then him on Earth. It was really well done, I think, and it's probably because Paul Dini had a lot to do with it, and Bruce Timm, and they did they did most of the Batman animated series, and they're just smart writers, smart guys, and so, and I remember just loving the show. I mean, it was basically, you just take, it's like the same, it's a different side of the same coin. It's like Batman and Superman are the same coin, but different sides. And it was just like, it was so cool, because you know, it was just exactly like Batman, but different, you know? Like, I mean, they drew them the same. You know, they had the same, almost the same kind of animation, pretty much.
Slightly updated.
Yeah, slightly, obviously, because it came out later than Batman, but it was really well done, I think, and I love this is really bad that I looked at his name and then I forgot his name. But the guy there's been a couple guys that have taken turns doing Superman's voice.
Oh, Tim Daly was the one from the show.
And he was from the show Wings.
Wings, yeah.
He's my favorite Superman animated voice by far. And I was surprised, Al, that I felt like a lot of the way he portrayed Superman in the cartoon was very similar to Christopher Reeve's Superman. Just like his stature and the way he talked and stuff was very similar. They didn't make Clark a nerd, though, really. Like, you know, he was a little clumsier, but not like Christopher Reeves.
Yeah.
So, what did you think of the Superman animated series?
The Superman animated series, I really enjoyed. I started getting into it after, of course, after Batman. And I like the way that they took Superman and they gave him an episodic feel. It was almost like the Fleischer cartoons, just, you know, in color.
Yeah, updated.
Yeah. And I like the way that they used Superman as kind of a conduit to introduce other Justice League characters. Later on in the series, it was more like in the second and third season that they started doing it. But they had of course, they had the 3-part World's Finest episode with Batman.
Which I want to punch myself that I didn't watch before this episode, before our podcast, because I really want to go and see that again. But I'm going to watch it again.
Yeah, it's amazing. So they have that. They have an episode where he meets one of the Green Lanterns. Not the one that ends up in the Justice League series, a different Green Lantern, but still one of the Green Lanterns. There's an episode, I forget what it was called, but I think he meets...
Well, he definitely meets Flash.
He meets the Flash in one, that's right.
But that one's called Fastest Man Alive, right?
Actually, that one's called Speed Demons.
Oh, is it?
Yeah, Speed Demons. The race that they had was called Fastest Man Alive race.
Okay.
But
and see, what an awesome way to introduce Flash into the cartoons, you know, onto TV. What an awesome way to introduce him with having him race the Man of Steel. I mean, that's just awesome. That's just so cool. And and you're right. And the thing is, I think they did that because it was a little bit easier, I think, to do that with Superman than Batman, because with Batman it was very, very reality based.
And he was stuck in Gotham the whole time. Yeah,
exactly. And so, like, when Superman came around, well, obviously he has powers. these fighting villains with powers. So it's like, okay, well, it makes sense. We can easily introduce, somebody else with powers. But obviously they did Batman first, which I think was smart because those two are the world's finest, obviously. And then you can start introducing other people, which is just really cool.
And then, of course, you've got there's another episode which I really, really liked. I wanted to talk about it. It's called Nighttime. It's an episode in the I think it was the third season. It was almost the end of the whole series, where Superman starts getting a little bit of a flood from Gotham. From Gotham's villains. They start flooding into Metropolis. And he's like, what the heck is going on? And they're talking that Batman's missing. And he goes, what? What do you mean Batman's missing? So he goes over to Gotham to find out what the heck is going on. And Robin has taken over because Batman was actually missing.
I gotta see this again.
You really gotta see this.
I don't remember. It's like I thought I saw all of the episodes, but it's not ringing a bell at all.
Yeah, this was an amazing episode. I watched it and I was like, oh, this is so cool. So what? I don't want to spoil the whole thing. I'm just going to say that he decides to help out Robin by dressing up as Batman.
What?
Yeah, it's amazing. I'm not going to tell you anymore because I know you'll really want to watch this one. So find it. It's called Nighttime Night. With the K actually like a night.
Yeah.
So watch that. It's really fun. It's a really fun episode.
Is it only one part or is it?
It's only one part. Only one part. Only one episode. So it's really cool. But yeah, so that was so much fun. You got to see so many Batman villains, and you even get to see a couple Superman villains. It's pretty cool.
Awesome.
So there's that. That's the talk on the animated series because unless you watch the whole series, there's not too much to talk about. It copies a lot of things from the comics, so read the comics, watch the series, see if you can make the connections. So why don't we jump in really quick? I just wanted to make a mention. I know you want to talk about certain series, but really quick, I wanted to mention there was a funny short episode of Pinky and the Brain. I think I showed it to you. I don't know if you remember it.
Yes. Yes.
But it's an episode where they actually find Clark's spaceship when he lands for the first time.
Yeah, they find him before the Kents do, right?
Right. They find him and they try to teach Clark how to take over the world.
That is just absolute gold. That is just brilliant writing. Right there, by Warner Brothers.
It was amazing, and I loved the writers for Pinky and the Brain. They were all like comedians and everything. So they go through that. They go through the whole Clark just not listening because he's a baby. So eventually, he like flies out, and he goes right back to his ship, and then the Kents find him.
So awesome.
So they just like leave him with the Kents, and.
I remember that. It's a great episode. I recommend you watch it, you get it, because it's just so cool to watch, especially if you were a fan of Pinky and the Brain and Warner Brothers. And that was just a really cool crossover mix of that. It's just, I forgot about that, but yeah, you did show me that because I had not seen it on TV, and I used to watch Pinky and the Brain, but I never saw that episode. That
was a little shout out I wanted to give for one of my favorite shows. All right, so let's jump in. You really wanted to talk about the Lois and Clark series just for a little bit. You wanted to touch on it because that was the first time that they did a live action one after the George Reeves show, where they had Superman as a relatable character of sorts. So why don't you talk a little bit about the Lois and Clark series?
Okay, well, yeah, Lois and Clark. That was another show in the '90s that I was obsessed with that show. I mean, and I'm embarrassed to say this, but I used to dress up like Clark with a down shirt, a Superman shirt under, and I would pretend to change into him and all this stuff, just like Lois and Clark. And as a kid watching it, I'm just thinking, oh, this is a Superman show. Oh, it's a Superman show. But now as an adult, and when I got older, I realized, well, that show is really focused more on Lois and Clark. Granted, I mean, obviously that's pretty obvious when you think about it. As a kid, you just see Superman. But the show is called Lois and Clark: The New Adventures of Superman. So Lois and Clark was in the title first because it's their story first, and then, oh yeah, there's also Superman around too. So I mean, yes, the show focused on Superman, but it was a lot of it too was very Lois centric. It was very focused on Lois. She was a big character, big focus of that show. Terry Hatcher obviously was a well-known actress, and that role I think really put her on the map too, because she's one of my favorite Lois incarnations. I have to say my first favorite, and some people think this is blasphemous, but my first favorite is Lois, Erica DeGrance from Smallville. We're going to get to that.
Yeah.
We're going to get to that. But she would be my second. A lot of people are like, oh, Margaret Kidder, the one from the Superman movies. Yeah, she was good, and she was the first Lois I knew. But because there was a movie, they're movies, and they have to pick and choose what they're going to, focus on and have camera time. And she just couldn't have as much camera time because the movies were about Superman. So with a show, you can focus more on other characters. You can do a whole episode dedicated to a character, So I think Lois and Clark was the first series. Well, and I do have to say I did like the Lois on the animated series too. I thought she was really smirky and quirky and and that's actually I think where they got a lot of the inspiration for the Lois on Smallville. I think those two, there's a lot of similarities. Mm-hmm. But I think Lois and Clark was where they first could really focus on Lois. And I'm not going to go too much into it because now as an adult, it's really not one of my favorite incarnations because now I think about it, as much as I love Dean Cain at that time, now looking back, it's just kind of like, it was a big stretch to cast him. And not that he's not a good actor. He's a great actor. It's just he looks nothing like what Superman's supposed to look like, except that he had, dark hair.
And he was pretty tall. That was about it.
That's the thing. He's maybe 6 feet. He's actually pretty short. And this is where I'm a nerd and Superman is supposed to be 6'3". Okay, Christopher Reeve 6'4". Tom Welling from Smallville 6'3". I believe Brandon Routh from Superman Returns is 6'3", between 6'3", 6'4". And actually Henry Cavill, the guy that's going to be playing Superman in Man of Steel, which I love the choice for him, but he's only 6'1", and my wife made a lot of fun of me for caring this much. But he's only 6'1", hard. So, and Dean Cain is my height, and I wish I was 6'3", partly because Superman's 6'3", but and I'd be able to dunk a basketball if I was 6'3". And so, but looking back on it, he just doesn't, he doesn't. I mean, and me being somebody that's of Latin descent, you'd think I would like it because he was, not that he's Latin, but has some Asian, I think, heritage in him, or something. He's got something.
He's got some Eastern European on him somewhere.
So it was kind of a more ethnic choice for Superman, which is fine. I mean, he played the role great. The look of him, I just don't see Superman when I look at him. That's all. I mean, he starts acting and talking. Yes, he can. He's a very good actor. But the episodes were pretty good. I remember loving the episodes, but then seeing them as an adult, I caught some episodes a few years ago on TV or whatever, and you could so tell that they were just filming it all on a lot, And that's kind of like what they did for Flash too, a little bit, and even Smallville. We'll talk about that because we didn't talk about that. But anyways, going back, it's just hard because now most shows on TV, they film on actual city streets and stuff. And I love that because to me that gives it more reality, more, more of a realism feel. And so, but yeah, I mean, but the show was good. There were some great episodes that I liked. But definitely, it's not. It's a good show. I like it. I'm glad it came out. But it's not one of my top two incarnations of Superman.
All right.
What about you think?
All right. I thought it was a pretty good show too. I pretty much have your same thoughts about it. Like, it's not the best. Smallville's definitely better. Like, when it comes to getting into the story of Superman, but I thought that for the time, that was the only DC live action show on at the time. So it was what was needed, but not what we wanted,
Yes, and actually it was I think it's the first, and somebody might correct me, I think it's the first, like, DC character, or maybe Flash was, but I'm not sure, but Superman, it's like the first DC character that was a show that was broadcasted on a major network. It was on ABC.
Actually,
it was competing with other adult shows.
I actually do have one before that. Wonder Woman on NBC.
Okay, but that was before my time.
Yeah.
Yes.
That was before our time, but still.
Yeah. But at that time, it was competing with other, like not CSI, Law and Order, and like those kind of just adult shows at the time. It was a show for adults. It wasn't really a show for kids. I mean, I don't think. I mean, because it was on at 8:00 or 9:00 at night. I mean, it really was. I mean, even Smallville is not really for kids. I would say it's like a PG-13 rating.
Yeah, it's for young adults.
Yeah, a lot of it's PG. Some episodes are PG. Not Lois and Clark, I'm talking about Smallville. Some episodes are PG, but 90% of them are PG-13.
Yeah, just about.
So, anyway.
All right, so let's go from this. Let's move on to the main event, so to speak. Let's talk about Smallville. Now, this show, it came out in 2001, I believe, right?
Right after 9/11.
Right after 9/11. So this show's was on. It had a good 10-year run. It went from 2001 to 2011. Season every year, about 20 to 24 episodes a season. So it had a very good run on the CW. It was very popular for a while. Tom Welling starred. It had, it showed his progression. It starts off when he's a freshman in high school, and it shows the aftermath in Smallville of what a bunch of radioactive meteorites can do to a town in, of course, the DC world.
Yes.
So this show sort of reintroduced a whole new generation to Superman in a way that was relatable for teenagers more than for adults, because in Lois and Clark, he was already Superman when the show started.
Exactly.
In the Superman animated series, besides the first episode, it goes from him being a baby to him being a teenager in one episode to him being an adult again. So there wasn't really any indication of what he was as a kid, as a teenager. So they decided to do this show as the origin story of Superman, and they had this no flights, no tights rule.
Yes.
Where they wouldn't let him wear the suit on the show, except in the very, very last episode. And they wouldn't let him fly. For real. I know that I rewatched a couple of the first episodes. He did sort of float.
Yes.
He had a dream or two where he flew, but except for in a couple of episodes, there was no real flying.
Exactly.
So, Roberto, you're the one who got me onto this show. You were watching it first. why don't you talk about your feelings on Smallville?
Oh, it's so hard to stay quiet over here. Thank you. I'm like about to jump out of my seat. All right. So I'm driving my dog nuts here. All right. So yeah, like Al said, they had a no tights, no flights rule. And also they're kind of like their unofficial catch slogan for the show was puberty with powers. That's what the creators, Miles Miller and Al Gough, would always say in interviews that they wanted to bring a story of Superman that had never really been done before. I mean, the comics had done Superboy. The comics had done a couple, probably a couple editions of him, in those Smallville years, but never at this length and into this depth. And this show came perfectly at the right time for me, but well, actually, I'm gonna contradict myself. Actually, not perfectly, because it would have been perfect if I was a freshman in high school when this show came out. But I was a senior in high school when the show came out. So, I mean, the first season I was a senior. And so I did get to be in high school at the same time as Superman, per se, so to speak. But, yeah, this show, when I first saw it coming out, I was just blown away. And I talked about it in our first podcast. I won't get into that again, but I just remember seeing the first teaser, and I was just thinking that is a cool, rendition of the fact that when he comes with a meteor shower, because that hides his ship, kind of, like, because everybody's worried about this meteor shower, not even thinking of looking for a spaceship. They're just trying to survive this horrible meteor shower. And obviously he's biased, and obviously I'm biased, but the guy that plays Jonathan Kent, John Schneider, on the show, he described the pilot episode as the best 2 hours of television history, in his opinion. Because he thought he was so impressed with the way the TV crew and everybody put the show together. And those of you that don't know, John Schneider was in the show Dukes of Hazzard. So he has some experience in television and being on a hit show. And I just think he was awesome as Jonathan Kent. By far my favorite Jonathan Kent. I'm hoping that Kevin Costner in the new Man of Steel movie will blow my mind too. But John Schneider is just amazing as Jonathan Kent, and Annette O'Toole as Martha Kent, perfect choice. And they actually, Al, I don't know if you know this, they had a totally different actress that was going to play Martha Kent. They actually filmed her. She actually did the whole pilot, and then I forgot why. But then she had to drop out, or they I don't know what happened, but then they had Annette O'Toole try out, and then somehow she became the Martha Kent. And what's amazing, for those of you who don't know, Annette O'Toole played Lana Lang in Superman 3 with Christopher Reeve, which is just awesome. So she got to play Superman's high school sweetheart, and she gets to play his mom. That's just pretty cool. And then Tom Welling is a brand newcomer to television. He actually was a little back history. He was a construction worker in New York. Well, I don't know if he's from New York, but he was a construction worker turned model turned actor. He basically just went in for the audition, but originally he didn't want the role because he just thought, oh, I'm going to be in tights and it's going to be Superman. And so he didn't want it. He turned it down 3 times. Because he just did not want to be Superman. And they told him, no, listen, this is no tights, no flights. This is going to be him in high school. This has never been done before. And then he finally read the script, and he was like, all right, I'm in. I'll do it. And so, and I remember seeing him for the first time. I'm thinking, wow, he looks like a Clark Kent. He's tall. He's got the features, everything, and
he's got the muscles.
And Spider-Man movie had come out earlier that year or the year before, and that kind of got me into superheroes again too, because I had been kind of away from it. And when I saw that and the special effects they used, and then they used the same kind of special effects in Smallville, I was like, oh, I'm watching the show. This is good. And as Al knows, I introduced Smallville to him. I don't think I got into this in the first episode, but I pretty much, well, not pretty much, I did. The year after, Smallville season 1 ended in May 2002. I graduated high school, but I was still in the same town as my high school, and I had gotten one of my friends really into the show as well, and he was still a senior. He's a year below me, and I got him so much into the show that he was like, "When is the premiere to season 2?" And I was like, "Oh, well, it's not till this was May," and I was like, "Well, it's not till like October or September of this year." He's like, "Oh my gosh." He's like, "Dude, we should probably," and I think I said as a joke, "We should have like a Smallville party." And I didn't think anything of it. And then he went away with it, blew it up. He's like, "No, we're having it. We're going to have it in my house," because he was living in his garage, his parents' garage, and let him make that into his room. He's like, "We're going to have a Smallville party. We're going to make flyers and everything." I'm like, "What? Are you freaking kidding me?" And he's like, "No, it's serious." I'm like, "All right." And then this other kid that was also in his class that I was friends with, he was a really wealthy kid, and we had a couple of parties at his house too, but we had like a viewing party of Smallville, and he literally made flyers, passed them around to all the kids in the high school, and we literally had like 45 or 50 kids in his garage watching season 2, episode 1 premiere, and like maybe there was 2 people in that whole crowd that had actually seen an episode before. And so you had all these people there, and I'm like, this is all for my show. I was so happy. And you know my friend Travis, obviously. Al knows my friend Travis. And me and him have been the only ones that really were into the show. So even he was like, he's a huge Superman fan as well. That's his favorite superhero. And me and him had been into the show, and we got our friend Mike into the show, and he's the one that got everybody to come watch it. And I remember seeing when they say, "Oh, previously on Smallville," and everybody's just quiet in that room. I felt like we were watching movies, and it was just awesome. It was amazing. And after that, the crowd started like dissolving a little bit. It was like, then it grew to be about a solid like 8 or 10 people that would come every time to watch it. And for all season 2, it went on that whole year. We were really into it. And then season 3 kind of died down. People graduated and left, and then that was it. And then it was just literally like 4 of us that really would watch. But anyways, but like I was saying earlier, how a lot of people say that Superman is not relatable. You can't really relate to him. But this idea of him being in high school was perfect, because a lot of people can relate to being in high school, even adults. And you got to see Superman struggling with the same things we struggle with, which is awesome. Homework, not really curfew as much, but a little bit of curfew in the show. Getting in trouble with your parents, having a crush on somebody, feeling like an outsider. All these things you got to see Superman go through. And some of my favorite episodes, my wife and I just rewatched pretty much the whole season. The whole series. Except for the last 3, because I don't have them yet. But which I know is blasphemous if anybody knows me. But I'm waiting to get them on Blu-ray. That's why. But some of my favorite episodes is when he got in trouble with his parents, because I just thought that was hilarious to me. That Superman, the most powerful being, pretty much almost in the DC universe or comics, is like afraid of his dad. Like there's one episode where it was that episode that him and Lana slept together for the first time in season 5. I don't know if you remember this. No. And they overslept, and so they had to creep downstairs. He had to try to sneak Lana out, and boom, his parents right there in the kitchen. And so Lana leaves, and his dad's kind of like, "Okay, we need to have a talk." And Clark's walking by him. Well, I'm like acting it out like you guys can see me, but Al can see me. And he's walking like this, and as he's talking, he goes like this, and then keeps walking next to his dad. This is Superman, and he's flinching at his human dad. I mean, it's amazing to me, because it just shows the respect, he has for his parents. I'm 28 years old, and I still have a healthy fear of my parents. Like, I'm always going to have that respect for them. even though they can't grab me anymore or anything like that. But it was just, those are some of my favorite moments of Smallville. It really, I think it put a lot of the man in Superman. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It really made him seem more human, even though he's not even remotely human.
Exactly. And I love the show too because, I mean, that's going to be probably always my favorite incarnation of Superman because it's the longest. It was in the pop culture for the longest time. It came right after September 11th when the country really needed a hero again. And I remember they actually were thinking of not even airing it because just everybody was just at a dead stop after September 11th. You know, everybody didn't know what to do. You know, do we still make movies? Do we still make TV shows? Do we still, sell cars? Do we still do all these normal things? So like, what the heck? It just stunned everybody. But then they thought, no, you know what? Superman needs to be out there. This is a character that stands for truth and justice, and that's somebody that needs to be in the forefront right now. And if you think about it, Superman, when he was created during, the Depression and World War II, World War I. So it's like, it was perfect, really. And
he's the hero everyone turns to in those times.
Exactly, and I'm going to turn it over to you because I want to hear what you think. But I think Smallville too, as far as just a comic book sense, or what we like to talk about it here. I think some amazing episodes where they got to introduce other DC characters, other DC villains, Superman villains. There was so many episodes where I was like, that's how you do it. That's how you do Superman right there. It's dark, but it's still light. It's still hope. It's still serious. It's legitimate. It's not corny. It's not campy. But it has campy episodes, especially in the later seasons. Mm-hmm. But, I mean, I just love the show. I would have been happy if they kept going, but I think they could have I think they could have did it after season 4. Because, spoiler, if you haven't seen it, at the end of season 4, he throws the crystal that creates the fortress. And they always said they wanted to end it right before he becomes Superman, or right when he becomes Superman. I think they could have ended it. It would have been really devastating if they only ended it after 4 seasons. But just the way it ended, what you see, the vision, the picture, it could have been perfect too. But obviously, the way it ended it was awesome too. It was just, him ripping the shirt up.
True. And it was a really good series. Of course, after Roberto showed me the episode, I started watching it with my family. And actually, after season 8, I got a friend of mine to start watching. I showed him a couple episodes, and he was like, this is actually pretty okay. I kind of like this. So I let him borrow season 1. 3 days later, he's like, okay, I want season 2 now. And I'm like, really? Did you just watch the whole thing over the weekend? He's like, yes. And now I want season 2. So I let him borrow up through season 5, I think. That's as far as I went through season 6. And I had season 7 on Blu-ray. And he didn't have a Blu-ray player, so he had to find season 7 all on his own. But he got really into the series, and one thing that he mentioned that I really wanted to mention was that this show also not only showed the progression of Superman's beginnings, but it also showed the beginning of Lex Luthor and his progression.
Thank you for bringing that up.
Yeah, that was a crazy, awesome thing that they did. They have him in the very first episode meet Lex Luthor. He saves Lex's life, and they become friends. And
that's an interesting twist, because I think there's only one other mention in comic books where Superman and Lex knew each other beforehand. Other than that had never been done before, and I thought that was a really interesting twist to the show.
Yeah, so they have them meet, they have them become friends, and they're friends on and off throughout the series. Mostly off, because so many terrible things happen that makes Clark not trust Lex.
Actually, I think Smallville, and rewatching the animated series, I think they took a lot of how Lex was done in the animated series, and that was almost the same kind of Lex you saw in Smallville, the wealthy, rich, always into these secret projects, Lex Luthor. And I just think that it was an amazing descension into darkness I've ever seen them do. And Michael Rosenbaum as Lex Luthor was just amazing. He was perfect. And he was one of the best actors on that show by far. The way he could just, like, play, he made you at times root for him because you really did want him to be, because that was amazing about Smallville is they would toy and tease like what he could be if he was good. And you're like, yes, why can't they just be like that? Why can't they be friends? But then you're like, no, it's the, this is the stuff of legends. They're supposed to be enemies. And then you get to see him as the evil Lex Luthor, obviously, but you get to see how he started, how he becomes that. And it's just, you do that so much more with a show than what you could do with a movie like they try to do with Anakin Skywalker. And so I'm so glad you brought that up because, yeah, the progression of Lex Luthor and the progression of Superman, you get to see how these two legendary characters become who they end up being.
And very fun fact, Michael Rosenbaum, the actor who plays Lex Luthor, also voiced the Flash in the Justice League series, the animated series.
It's awesome.
So you get to see two different parts of Michael Rosenbaum there. You get to see him all fun and happy and enjoyable in Justice League and all dark and brooding as Lex Luthor in Smallville.
Mm-hmm.
All right, really quick, I wanted to touch on something about Smallville. I wanted to ask your opinion on something that was unique to the Smallville universe, the different forms of kryptonite that they used on the show.
Uh-huh.
I wanted to ask your opinion on those because I thought it was quite interesting that they started off with the normal green kryptonite, but then they slowly mutated different forms of it to show different sides of Clark and show different ways to weaken him.
Yes, I think that was I thought it was awesome. I liked it because, when you have a show, first of all, you need material. You need stories to tell. But they said early on, like in the third season, that they technically could go on forever. I mean, there's endless stories for Clark Kent. But I think with the kryptonite, I think it was really cool. I always knew about the green. Obviously, everybody, that's the one that kills him or weakens him. And then the red, I kind of knew about already, too, because that one takes away his inhibitions. Doesn't necessarily make him evil. That's a misconception. A lot of people think that it just makes him evil. Doesn't necessarily make him evil. It just takes away his inhibitions. It just takes away his conscience kind of thing, which I guess it could turn you evil. But when he was on Red Kryptonite, he would never just like kill people or whatever. It was just like, he just became like more selfish kind of thing, like almost more like a regular person.
He became almost Lex-like with the red kryptonite.
And so that was interesting. I like the blue kryptonite was another interesting one. That one just took away his powers, just stripped away. And I think that's so ironic considering how the color blue is so synonymous with Superman.
Right.
It's the suit, that's strength, that's his, and the blue kryptonite is what takes away all that. I thought that was very ironic, very interesting way to go about it. The only two other kryptonites they really did on there was black and silver, I think. And silver that wasn't even real kryptonite. That was just Brainiac, and like basically took a rock and added like his own like physiology to it or something. Like he infected a rock and made what looked like silver kryptonite to infect Clark and make him all paranoid and crap.
So he had a little bit of Brainiac juice in the in the rock.
Yeah. So that's how they went about that. And the black kryptonite, which I never understood because I guess that was supposed to like kind of divide him or something, or I believe that was in the 4th season. I don't remember seeing it anymore after that, but I remember they had black kryptonite, but then I was confused with that and that black stone that he had to get to reunite, to create the crystal that eventually creates the fortress. Mm-hmm. So I don't know, there's only one, and the black kryptonite, basically in the 4th season, Jor-El was controlling Clark to make sure he fulfilled his destiny, to make sure he's the one that finds the crystals that eventually create the one that creates the fortress. And so since Clark is always, not listening to him and basically just disobeying Jor-El and everyone, Jor-El took control of him and sent him across the world. The Black Kryptonite pretty much snapped him out of it. So I don't even know what you could really say Black Kryptonite does, except kind of like reboot Superman.
Yeah. Okay. One last thing I wanted to talk about Smallville. There's only one thing. During the run of Smallville, there were 2 episodes where Christopher Reeve guest starred. And what I wanted to talk about was how you felt on the episode where they mentioned that his character dies, which is because Christopher Reeve himself died. So I wanted to get your feelings on the death of Superman.
Okay. I'm glad you brought this up. See, this is why we're partners. This is why we're cousins. Because I forget about things, and Al remembers what I want to talk about somehow. I'm glad you mentioned that because, like I said, my wife and I recently just watched the seasons again. And I told her that my there's a lot of episodes of Smallville, within 10 seasons, 22 episodes a season pretty much. That's a lot of episodes. There's so many great. But the best episode I have to say by far is the episode called Rosetta in season 2 with Christopher Reeve. And the fact that they chose, Christopher Reeve gets to play a character. Obviously, those of you that don't know, you should know. Christopher Reeve played Superman. He got hurt in a riding accident. He used to ride his horses, and he used to compete, actually. And he had a terrible accident, fell, got paralyzed all the way from the head to neck down, pretty much. And so they really wanted to bring him in the show just as kind of like a passing of the torch to the next generation, to Tom Welling, And they thought of a brilliant character for him called Virgil Swan, who was basically like a Stephen Hawking type character. A billionaire who's a scientist, who's like all into astronomy and space and all those things. And they have him tell Clark his origin before he learns it from anywhere else. I just thought that was amazing. And that is the first time you ever hear a hint of the John Williams theme from Superman.
In the show. In the show theme and the score, they decided to put a little bit of the John Williams theme incorporated into the score of the show so that it added a bit more of a Superman air to the episode.
Exactly, and that was television gold. That was, John Schneider said it was the pilot. I think it was that episode. Just is one of the greatest hours of TV ever. Because Christopher Reeve was another reason. I'm going to get choked up. I'm going to try not to, but it's just, to play Superman, you have to be a good guy. You know what I mean? In real life, you just have to be. That character means so much to so many people. And anything I've ever heard from any actor, director, writer, producer, anybody that's ever worked for me has said nothing but good things about him. Kevin Conroy, who's the guy that voiced Batman in the Batman animated series, he went to a really prestigious acting school called Juilliard, and I believe it's in New York.
It's in New York. Yep.
And he actually was there at the same time as Christopher Reeve, and he said in an interview with Kevin Smith that even back then, and that was before Christopher Reeve was known, You know, he was a student there. But even back then, everybody in the school loved him. They said he was a great guy, nice guy, nothing you could say about this guy. All right, and everybody says that he was Superman in that way as well. He was a philanthropist. You know, especially after he got hurt too. He started a foundation. You know, he's just an all-around great guy. And Tom Welling, from what I've heard, is very similar, very great guy. I read in an interview, that he would, every time they would film in a new location for Smallville, him and his wife would buy a bunch of toys in the local toy store, and then they would collect them all year round and then donate them to just children that are less fortunate, you know? And that's just one thing that he does, but it's awesome things like that you want to hear from people that play these heroes, you know? So to have Christopher Reeve on the show and to tell him about his origins, and that it was just amazing. And Tom Welling's performance was unbelievable in that show too. I mean, he generally looked, he was frustrated, he was upset, he was like happy because he was learning who his parents were. He learned that they loved him, you know, but he was scared because he finds out he's the only one. Because that's his biggest thing on Smallville is I'm the only one. He always wanted somebody else to be from Krypton too, because he always felt alone. Which is ironic because his parents are amazing people, and they always talk about alone. You have us, but anyways. And so that was just great TV. And then he was in another episode on season 3, very short-lived. He didn't have too much screen time on that one. And then it wasn't as good as the Rosetta episode. I believe that one was called Prophecy, maybe, or something.
Something like that.
I'm not sure, but it was an awesome episode, but just not as good as Rosetta. And then in season 4, which was 2004, he had passed away, unfortunately. And you asked me what did I feel about them mentioning. I think the way they did on the show was very tasteful. Actually, they referenced his loss early on in season 4, but it was at the end of the show. It said in memory of Christopher Reeve, because he died in the middle of the filming, and he wasn't scheduled to be on the show again or anything. He just he died, and they put it right after the episode Facade, and which is really not a good episode. But at the end of it, it just said, in loving memory of Christopher Reeve, he really made us believe a man could fly. And I did tear a little bit when I saw that. I mean, people can make fun of me, I don't care. But he was such a hero to me. And just to see that, it just reminded me, I was like, oh my gosh, yeah, he's really gone. And then later on in the season, towards the end of season 4, they mentioned the character Virgil Swan on Smallville dying as well. And so I thought that was very tasteful. I liked how they did it. It was very respectful. And what's cool is they actually tied that in with Lionel Luthor's character, which is Lex's dad. And they revealed that he had something to do with that character's death. And there's a whole other to that, which is really cool. Get the seasons, watch it. Season 7 is amazing. I have one word, Veritas. Remember that if you go watch that season, because it's amazing. And look it up. It's in Latin. I'll just tell you it means truth. But anyways, it's amazing. But yeah, so that's what I think about that. I think they really did it tastefully. I mean, do you think so?
Yeah, I think I liked it. I liked the way that not only they respectfully mentioned that he had died, they also was able to tie in the character's death with the direction of the show, and they had it mean something. They had him. What did they have him send, like the last piece of the crystal by mail?
Yeah, that was another thing. Is they had him send more information to Clark, like one more time, give him another piece of advice about his destiny, about his heritage. It's just really cool to see that as well. And that's the thing. Obviously, in real life, it was a big loss to the world and to Hollywood and Vision, but then they made it meaningful to the character Clark Kent in the show too, which was really cool. Like he was genuinely sad that he lost Virgil Swan
because he was a good friend to him. Yeah. All right. Now we'll move on to the movies. We'll move on to the most recent, which was Superman Returns, and then we'll talk a little bit about Man of Steel. All right? Okay, so Superman Returns, that came out a little while ago, a couple of years ago, about the same time as Batman Begins. They decided to do like this duo thing and have both of them come out. They came out in 2006, and they wanted... I think the idea behind it was to kind of be a continuation of the storyline from Superman 2. The original cut, not the Richard Donner cut, of course. So they had it kind of follow in as the sequel to Superman 2, as if Superman 3 and 4 never happened.
Yes.
So this was... It was an okay movie to start with, in my opinion. It was just okay. They jumped around a lot with the story. They had... If you haven't seen it, spoiler alert, they had Clark and Lois have a kid together. What I did like was that they did use the original Superman score that John Williams wrote as a kind of a guideline for the score for this movie to like keep it in the same vein again. They also used archive footage of Marlon Brando. Being Jor-El, and Brandon Routh looked, for me at least, the casting was really good. He looked almost like Christopher Reeve, and I thought that was pretty cool, especially when he was asked Clark Kent. Not so much as Superman, he was his own Superman, but as Clark Kent, he looked and acted almost like Christopher Reeve did in the original movies.
Yes, there's subtle differences, but pretty much spot on.
Yeah. So why don't you, you're the big Superman fan. I know at least the first time I watched it, I enjoyed it. The second time I watched it, I enjoyed it a little less. Because I realized all the things that I had heard about it. It's like, it's not that good of a movie. What are you talking about? It was a great movie. No, didn't you notice this, and that? I'm like, oh. Actually, now that you talk about it that way... So, what was your thoughts on it?
Yeah, pretty much the same thing. Like, I was so excited, dude, that they were coming out with the new movie that I was blind. Love is blind. And I was so into it. I didn't see any, wrongs in it at all. I didn't see any mistakes, any flaws. The first time I watched it, I was amazed by the special effects. I mean, that movie still is one of the best special effects movies, I think, of all time. I mean, it looked amazing. The action sequences, everything was really well done. And the story at first is a good idea in the sense of, like, I like that he had been gone for a while and then came, just that alone. You just hear that. Superman's gone for 5 years and then comes back. That was pretty cool because he had been gone from the movie scene for a while and now he's back. So that made sense to me. That was a good idea. Now, the fact that he was out exploring Krypton, I was like, but Krypton's gone. Like, why is he out there? But their whole thing was that he said in the movie, scientists said that there might still be some remnants of it. There might still be some living people maybe or something. So that's why he went. But, Superman and every other incarnation's always been like, this is my home. This is my home. Earth is my home. I need to protect it. Like, how could you leave it for 5 years to do that, And that was a little bit of a stretch after seeing it a bunch of times and that being objective, But, I mean, I loved it at first. I saw it like 4 times in the theater. I saw it regular 2D. Then I saw it 3 times in 3D. Hey. Yeah, something like that. But anyways, and but yeah, but then when I heard he was gonna have a kid, kind of a thing. Well, there was only rumor. It wasn't like before it came out, it was a rumor because there was a kid in the story. There was a kid in the trailers. And they're like, well, who is this kid? And even in the movie, they're teasing the whole time. Is it his kid? Is it not his kid? It's not till he freaking, spoiler, throws a piano across the room, and he's like 5 years old. It's like, okay. Um,
He's a super kid.
But then they played it off because he had asthma too, and he had all these like he had like a very poor immune system or something like that. But then he has this strength, and so that was kind of like, and then the fact that when I look back at it again, I thought the Lex Luthor, even though I loved Kevin Spacey, I loved that. When I heard he was going to be in it, I was like, oh man, he's such an awesome actor. They picked an Academy Award-winning actor to play Lex Luthor. How much better can you get? Bryan Singer, the director, had worked with him before on Usual Suspects, which was an awesome movie. Bryan Singer directed the 2 X-Men's, which I thought were really good movies. So I thought, okay, he's going to definitely do Superman right. But I think he just fell victim to trying to play too much. The word just escaped me, but paying too much tribute to the Donner films. I think it was too much. He was trying to please too many people, kind of thing. Because he even had Superman hold the car, like that iconic pose where he holds the car, just like I think the first action comic of Superman where he holds the car. I mean, that's cool and everything, but it was just like it seemed like he was trying to do that too much instead of creating a new story, bringing him updated. I mean, it was the darkest version of Superman I think ever in movies.
Yeah.
It was dark movie. But I still think Lex Luthor and his criminal friends was a little too campy for me. I wish it were a little bit more serious. I wish his plot was more of a serious threat than just creating a new island with Krypton, with the crystals and stuff. I just thought that was kind of lame after a while. But yeah, so that's my thoughts. I mean, I like the movie. I own it. I mean, I just wish, looking back, that they would have, been a little bit more original. And at that time, I really even though people were saying the same things they say about now, I still wanted to see a sequel to it because he promised, Bryan Singer promised an amazing sequel that it was going to be like Wrath of Khan, which was like the sequel Star Trek movie that was I haven't seen any of them, but except the newest one. But apparently that movie was just out of the gate, all action, amazing movie compared to the first one, which was very slow and mostly story driven and stuff like that. So I was really excited to see what the next one was going to be, and like there was rumors of what the script was going to be and characters they were going to bring in and all these things. But it would have been cool to see that. And I thought right away that Lois was wrong. I thought I like Kate Bosworth, but she was just so young. She was my age. She's my age now, obviously. She's still my age. But, like, at that time, she was 22 years old. I mean, that's really young for Lois Lane, Like, Lois is supposed to be an accomplished reporter, accomplished woman.
And this is 5 years later. So she at least had to be in her 30s.
Well, supposedly. But still, just, and even Superman was very young, too. He was only 25. It was just, like, it's very, very young cast as far as that goes. And even Jimmy, too, was really young. But Jimmy's supposed to be young, so that's okay. I liked Perry White, Frank Langella. I think I said his name right. He was a good Perry because he's an Oscar-winning actor now. But, I mean, that's so same thing as you. Pretty much, the more I watched it, the more flaws I found with it. Superman didn't even really have that much dialogue. I would have wished to see more dialogue from him. I would have liked to see him fight somebody actually that was on par with his powers instead of just seeing him get the crap beaten out of him by Lex because there's kryptonite around. So, anyways, we got to move on. We're running. I got to be leaving soon. But anyways, so that's what I think of Superman Returns. Still a good movie. I think people should still watch it just to get an idea, just to see an updated version of it. But that leads us into the next topic.
The Man of Steel, the next thing that's coming out next summer. That movie, it's jam-packed with star power. Like, the name actors in this thing just makes the whole thing ridiculous. You got Amy Adams playing Lois, Henry Cavill playing Clark Kent and Superman, Russell Crowe is Jor-El, Kevin Costner is Jonathan Kent, you got Diane Lane as Martha Kent, Lawrence Fishburne playing Perry White. I'm a little confused by that one, but it makes things different. So
that was an interesting twist.
Yeah. So you got all these big, huge named actors. You got Zack Snyder, the guy who directed Watchmen and 300, Sucker Punch. You got him directing. You got Chris Nolan being the exec producer. You'd think with all of this power, this is going to be the craziest movie of all time. This still remains to be seen, but it's coming out next year. We're going to find out next year anyway. So, Roberto, you said you had some extra news. We already had some news in the first episode. You gave us a little bit more news last episode. What new things have you heard about it this time?
Okay, well, it's kind of like, I'm pretty much going to tell a rumor that's been sent out there, but then I'm also going to kind of crash or stump that rumor also. But it's something very interesting to think about. Well, first of all, I'm going to start off with, like you said, it's just jam-packed with, well, first of all, when I first heard that Christopher Nolan was attached to this project, I was just like, oh my gosh, this is just amazing. Because obviously he did such an amazing job with Batman. I'm like, okay, I'm on board. Awesome. I already knew they were going to reboot it, so I was really worried who they were going to get to steer this thing. They got Christopher Nolan. I was super happy. David S. Goyer, I heard that he wrote the screenplay, wrote the script, came up with a fresh new idea on Superman, and that Nolan was going to help him iron out the story. And I was like, great, amazing, it's going to be awesome. And then they start casting everybody, and I'm just like, wow, 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 wow. Everybody has either won an Academy Award or been nominated, and that's what you want to do with a super character like this. You want to surround him with amazing talent, but then you also want to hire an actor that is a good actor, but is relatively unknown, because it's Superman. You don't want to hire somebody that's already got baggage and history, and you know him for other things, and then suddenly he's Superman. No, you're not going to see him as Superman. So this guy, Henry Cavill, he was in 300. I mean, not 300. I'm sorry. It's the producers of 300, but Immortals is the movie he's in. If you haven't seen that, it came out last year, November 11th, 11/11/11, which is pretty cool. And it's not an amazing movie. I'm not going to say that, but it's pretty good. It's entertaining. Mickey Rourke's in it. He's the bad guy in it, the villain. But I believe he plays Prometheus. Henry Cavill does, and you get to see in that movie that he is a good actor. He's got the chops. He looks like Superman. He can pull it off, and so I'm even more excited once I hear all these actors. The only thing I'm concerned about, I love Amy Adams. She's an awesome actress. She's pretty. She can act. She was actually in Smallville in season 1. Episode Craving, I believe. But she's already 36 years old or something like that. So I feel like, whereas Kate Bosworth was too young, I feel like she's almost a little too old for Lois Lane. But whatever, I trust Zack Snyder as far as casting. He's casted everybody else brilliantly. The fact that Maximus from Gladiator is freaking Jor-El is just still blowing my mind. And that Robin Hood is Jonathan Kent is still blowing my mind too. So I'm really looking forward to this movie. Obviously, the first 2 teasers are out. One is narrated by Jonathan Kent. Kevin Costner was narrated by Russell Crowe. We've already mentioned this in the episode of our first podcast, but you got to check it out. Very little in that teaser. A lot of people are critiquing it, saying, "Oh, there's nothing in it. Why is he on a fishing boat?" All this other crap. And I'm like, dude, it's a teaser, okay? It's literally supposed to tease you and want more. I think it was brilliantly done. It shows the fact that they had 2 versions of it is just amazing to me. And I wonder how much Nolan had in that. I mean, maybe he didn't have anything because he's been busy with Dark Knight Rises, but I just think that was brilliant.
I thought the funny part was that they used music from Lord of the Rings in the trailer because they didn't have any music for the Man of Steel yet.
Put the cherry on top, though, as far as casting and all that goes. They got Hans Zimmer is going to be doing the score, which is just amazing. I cannot wait to hear what he does. It's going to be really hard to not hear the John Williams theme, but I trust him. He's done everything he's done has been gold to me as far as scores for movies. And anyway, so we got to be wrapping up soon, so I'm just going to get right here. The rumor that I read about a week or so ago is that, and this is not a brand new rumor, but who the rumor is about is. And the rumor is that, well, obviously, Warner Brothers is going to be launching a Justice League movie, hopefully by the year 2015 or 2014. And so the rumor is that Man of Steel is going to somehow introduce or show that Superman is linked with other DC characters. And there's so many rumors out there. How are they going to do this? Are they going to go the Marvel route where you see something at the end of the credits? Or are they going to go like the Smallville kind of route where you kind of mention cities from other heroes or things like that, or actually introduce a character in there that's from another city or that's another hero? So recently, Henry Cavill, who's the actor playing Superman, was at like some charity event or some kind of event, and he was apparently showing around or walking around with the actor named Gina Carano, which, if a lot of you don't know who she is, you might want to IMDb her or Google her. She was in the biggest movie I know she was in is Haywire, which came out last year, where it's kind of like a Bourne type of movie, but with a girl. She's the lead actor. Channing Tatum's in it, but he's in it for just a little bit. And she's a pretty woman. She's kind of a little muscular. She's played a lot of fighting roles. And the biggest rumor is that she's going to be Wonder Woman, that she's one of the actresses that are rumored out there to be Wonder Woman. And apparently he was showing her around this place. And the biggest rumor is that she's going to be in Man of Steel, that she's going to be like introduced there really quickly. And I was like, what? Like, this was just a huge spoiler. I was like, are you kidding me? And they showed a picture of them two at this event. If you look at some of her pictures, there's a few pictures where you say, okay, yeah, I could see her as Wonder Woman. She would just need some like blue contacts maybe, because I think she's Italian. So she's got the dark hair. And then recently I read that pretty much that a source from Warner Brothers something said that absolutely not, Wonder Woman will not be in Man of Steel. Now, who knows? They could just be saying that because they don't want any spoilers to get out. But I just want to throw that out there and let some of you think about that, just to kind of mess with your mind. But when I read that, I was like, what? Because they had Henry Cavill and her next to each other, so you got to see Superman and maybe the Wonder Woman. And I just think she would be an awesome. I think she'd be a pretty good choice for Wonder Woman. I wouldn't be upset if she was Wonder Woman, because I already do think of her as a tough girl, and Wonder Woman is supposed to be tough and strong, but also feminine, and so. I do think she would have to slim down a little bit because she is kind of bigger, not fat-wise. She's bigger, she's kind of thick, muscular-wise. But I think she needs to slim down, lean out. That's the correct way to say it, is lean, to be a little bit more lean, because you can be muscular and lean. But I think she could do it. So I wanted to tell people about that because that's just a really cool rumor if it's true, I think. But that's the latest thing in Man of Steel. News. I'm just so stoked for this. Again, it's still pretty certain that we will see the first theatrical trailer for it this December when The Hobbit comes out, right before The Hobbit. And I just wanted to talk to you a little bit about we talked about it in the first episode, but I'm so curious to see what the plot is going to be of this movie. And Michael Shannon, we didn't mention, is is Zod, General Zod, which, if you don't know him, IMDb him. He's been in many things. He's on the show Boardwalk Empire, which is on Showtime or HBO or something like that, which I think is a movie like takes place in the 20s, like gangsters in the 20s, I think, or something like that. But he looks. I don't know if that's a compliment or a diss, but picturing him as Jarrell is just amazing to me. I'm so glad they picked him because he is another Academy Award nominee, I believe. I don't know if he's won yet, but he's been nominated, and he's known to be a great actor. And I'm so interested to see how he does Jarrell. Zod. How he? Oh my gosh, I can't believe I said that. I'm so interested to see how he's going to do Zod, and how they're going to do that. Another spoiler, Al. There's a big rumor that Feora, who's going to be in the movie, who plays his wife or his female companion, supposedly there's been a rumor that there's going to be a scene where she kicks the absolute crap out of Superman.
That would be fun to watch.
Yeah, the biggest rumors online is when you look it up, it says like Man of Steel to be beaten by a woman in the new movie or something like that, question mark. Or to get his, ASS thrown to him by a female character. So it's really interesting because, but I mean, it makes sense that she could. I mean, she's a Kryptonian. She's going to have the same powers pretty much. So it's not a far stretch to think that she's obviously going to get some hits in it. But that was like a big thing on the web for like a week was, Superman's going to get beat by a girl in the movie.
Well, again, and this is something that has been brought up, but we haven't really talked about it, is that Superman, because he has all of these powers, never really, or at least it hasn't been shown, that he took any initiative to learn any real fighting styles. He just kind of pushes his way into a situation and then throws punches haphazardly and hopes that everything will turn out okay.
And a rumor I read a while ago was that he might be using some martial arts moves in this movie, which I just think is going to be awesome. I would love to see Superman do a martial arts move. I think it would be smart for them not to go full martial arts because he's not like a Batman or a Green Arrow where that's what they use is their training. They learn these fighting styles like Kung Fu or karate or taekwondo, or ninjutsu, but I would think I think they do need to give him, like they do need to pick a fighting style that exists that is not so martial arts, but is not so like just kind of rumbling and that's it. Like I would like to see him do some signature moves that are very calculated and like, or maybe mention that in the movie where it's like Kryptonian style fighting. But they would have to really pick some kind of obscure fighting style that exists today to use for the movie. I think that would be really cool.
That would be pretty cool. All right, really quick, just want to throw it out there. Couple more things I wanted to talk about in the episode, but we were running kind of long, so I'm just going to kind of wrap it up with all of this. I think we're going to have to do an episode that just talks about superhero villains. Oh. Because we talked about it in the last episode. Batman has some crazy villains, and you can really judge a superhero by the villains he has to tangle with. And Batman has a bunch of crazy people, which kind of reflects on him. He has to almost be as crazy as them to figure out what they're going to do next. And then you got Superman, and for the most part, we only see him tangle with the super genius Lex Luthor. And Luthor's smart, but he doesn't have any other powers. He doesn't have all the training Batman has, so he can't really compete with him physically. He just comes up with ideas. But then you got other supervillains that Superman has. He's got like Brainiac, and he's got Zod, and the Toyman, and all these other random superheroes that he has that compete with him on a daily basis. I think we really need to get down and talk about these villains like, maybe not one by one, but set aside a whole episode to the villains of the DC universe.
No, I agree. I have an idea about that, and we're going to talk about that off the air because I want to shoot around some ideas. But I do want to tell our listeners that we definitely will be talking about villains on this show. But like I said, our next few episodes are going to focus on one character, one hero of the main 6 of Justice League, and then from there we'll dive into some other topics, and where me and Al and I are going to talk about that. We got to leave you wanting more, so I'm not going to say everything, all our plans, but we still, no matter what, we'll continue with reviewing Arrow every episode though in the beginning, and then we'll jump into our topic. And I'm hoping too, we will hopefully be having some guests on here to share their wisdom or their knowledge or questions they have about our beloved DC characters. So I do want to say that, but we are gonna wrap it up now. But I'm gonna leave it to Al to tell everybody who is the character we are going to talk about on the next episode.
All right, so we're wrapping up the Superman talk right now. Next episode that we're going to do, we are going to talk about one of the most iconic of superheroes. Of course, not a Superman, not a Batman. We've already gone over those. But the next most iconic that we could think of was Wonder Woman, the very first female superhero, the superheroine Amazon princess. And so we're going to talk about her next week. So you guys, if you want to listen, if you want to hear our talks about her, we're gonna go over Arrow. We're going to go over some more DC news. We're going to talk about her, and then we'll jump into some other heroes after her. But for right now, that's all we're going to leave you with. We're going to leave you with next week. It's Wonder Woman. That's who we're talking about.
So I can't wait because she's a character that has gotten a lot of attention, but I think she definitely deserves to have a whole episode dedicated to her, and so that's why I asked them, do you mind if we do Wonder Woman next? Because to be honest, usually when they show the Justice League and they top 3, they always show those 3: Batman, Superman, Wonder Woman. So she's always in that top 3, the big 3. And then you see maybe like Flash right after that or Green Lantern. But if you they always pick 3 to put on a cover. It's those 3. So I felt like we got to talk about Wonder Woman. Plus, it's a woman. Switch it up a little bit. So we'll get into that. We're also going to get, I won't tell you what topics we'll definitely talk about different incarnations. There's one specifically that I haven't seen yet that I have to watch before we do the episode, because I do want to talk about that and get into it and know what I'm talking about. And maybe I might even go and read a Wonder Woman comic before we come to the next one and discuss that. We'll see. But yeah, so this has been our 3rd official episode of AD and RD on DC. It's October 10th, 2012. And again, I'm Roberto.
I'm Al.
We will see you next.
Thank you for listening.